Hi, Caroline. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, welcome to Your True Reflection. And please tell us a little bit about who you are and how you help trauma survivors.
Well, first of all, Abby, let me say thank you so much. I feel very privileged to be joining you and to be sharing what I know that might help somebody else. So I've been working with clients who have been suffering with trauma at different levels. The one thing I'll say about trauma is it is what it is to each individual. You know, several people can go through the same situation, but we all have different ways of dealing with it. And I know from my own experience that in the language of the work that I do, I was a bit of a tough bucket. You know, I'm okay, I can pick myself up, dust myself off and carry on. But 13 years ago, I learned something that actually taught me, you know, it's a very different experience and one that we don't understand until perhaps years later. When I talk about tough bucket, I'm talking about stress bucket. So if we fill that bucket up with all our stress and trauma, we start to notice physical, mental, emotional disruption. And that is what I'm here to share. Perhaps some simple techniques, not the program I run, but simple techniques that help get through that. But everybody suffers from stress and trauma. Let me tell you that actually birth is our first trauma. Coming into the world, the biggest shock we can ever have, and that is when our body starts to react to that trauma and say, here you go, you're breathing, you've got a heart, and you've got something else to keep you going to recover from trauma.
Absolutely. So, what would you say is the difference between surviving trauma and healing from trauma? What's your thoughts on those two different things? Surviving trauma and healing from trauma.
And that is a great question. Everybody survives to a point. And there are many out there that actually don't because they can't cope. They can't cope with the physical, mental, and emotional pain that comes from holding on to the tension from the trauma they've experienced. And this, you know, I know we don't have that long here, but if I can explain that from the day that you came into the world, you draw tension into your body. It's called tonic freeze, startle response. And so when we go through traumatic experience, repeat, and I've worked with people that have had trauma all through their life, that tension builds in our body's muscle memory. We hold on to the adrenaline and cortisol from that event, and we don't remember the mechanism to release it and let it go. And so therefore, when we start to feel the physical, mental, and emotional pain, it's like, what can I do to ease this? So it might be go to the doctors and, you know, get the magic pills. But when we think about that, it's like sticky plaster. I was only talking to somebody recently who's experiencing other problems because of the pills they're taking. So it's not helpful. We might self-medicate. You know, that helps, doesn't it? Let's have a drink, let's eat the wrong food, something that gives us a dopamine effect.
Buy some more clothes online.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things people do to get that high hit,
gambling,
feel better.
Smoking, drugs. What happens after you've had that fix? The effects wear off. So you want it again and again and again. And then you've got another problem called addiction. I guarantee you talk to anyone with addictive behavior and they've got a history of trauma. What else have you got? Ignore it. You end up self-combusting. And people that ignore it get to a point where they just can't cope anymore. And sadly, they take their own life. And that at the moment is my mission to stop that happening. Amen. Because we can stop it happening. But I understand it. And I would share that when I wrote my book, I speak my truth. In my early years, when I was going through various issues with relationships, religion, with parents, and all of that, I took a few pills. And that wasn't because I wanted to end my life. It's because I wanted to end my pain. Unfortunately, I didn't end my life, but I can speak from experience. But that is how it is.
Thank you for sharing that.
So, that's, you know, what have you got left? If you've got deep pockets, you pay, but there's a lot of free things. You pay for therapies. Somebody do something to me and make me better. But the truth is, nobody can make us better. What we are getting from those individuals, and they do great work, because I tell you what, the graveyards will be more full than they are if we didn't have strategies to help keep the top off the bucket.
But this is really just surviving trauma. So how do we move on from surviving trauma into healing trauma?
So trauma is stuck in our body and we feel it. You can have coping mechanisms and management tools. And they're the things that we do to try and make us feel a bit better in that moment, in that week, whether that's going to yoga, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's having a massage, whether that's having reflexology, Indian head massage, anything else that makes us feel better.
So self-care.
Keep repeating, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Healing.
Mm-hmm.
Healing comes when we do something for ourselves.
And what's the one thing that people at home that could do for themselves to help?
The one thing is to get that tension out of the body. But you have to learn that process. But the most important thing that everybody's got to help get them through those moments of anxiety, panic, short breath, is to breathe.
Could you share with me a breathing technique?
Absolutely. I'm going to share 2 breathing techniques. They are in our program and they are important. But one is grounding breath. So if one feels that they're having a panic attack, anxiety, I would say, ideally, sit on the floor against a wall. Bring your feet to where your knees should be.
Your feet so where your knees should be. So you mean,
so you that's it. Bring your feet to the floor. Imagine
feet to the floor. Oh, so put your feet out in front of you.
Yes.
Yes.
Your feet are
okay.
in front.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're grounding through your feet.
Yes.
And also, initially, bring your palms to the floor and feel the connection of the earth and the wall supporting your back.
Okay, I haven't got a wall, but we can pretend.
No, but you can imagine that.
Yeah.
And then bring one hand up to your heart.
Yes.
And one hand to your abdomen, just below the navel.
Yes.
And then you sit tall, you close your eyes. And then when you're ready, you're going to take a nice deep inhale through the nose. And then breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose. And breathe out through the mouth. And you stay with that breath until you start to notice yourself quietening and settling. Because our breath is our life force, it's our energy, it's our chi, and it brings us into the moment. That is what's so important.
Yeah, even just from that bit, I feel more grounded. I do, immediately. You feel more aware. It's like less up here and a bit more down here.
Free, absolutely. And it's in your box now. The other one is, as a yoga teacher, We use this, but also it's in our program, is left nostril breathing. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Right. We have our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system. When we go into fight flight, everything flares up. And we can go into fight flight literally if we're traumatized, we might have PTSD, complex trauma, is that adrenaline cortisol starts to pump, you're feeling afraid, you want to run away, whatever it is. But you need to quieten that with your parasympathetic nervous system. That should come into play and calm you down. So to do that, you're going to take your finger to the left part of your nostril, to the right
Yeah,
side.
yeah, I've got it. To the
Yeah,
right, left, to the right, got it.
yeah. So you sit tall, you close your eyes,
Yes,
and you gently close the right nostril,
yes.
and you take a nice deep inhale through the left. You lift the finger off the right, you don't move it away, just release. No, you're just a small, just let it go. And you breathe out through both. You close the right, breathe in through the left. Open the right, breathe out through both. So keep your finger touching your nose, right? It's minimal movement. So just get into the rhythm of that. And then just take one more breath and release from that practice. And just sit quiet for a moment. And then open your eyes.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. We've actually had a message come in from somebody, and basically they've gone through some trauma. And when they are encouraged to talk about that, or hang on, let me get this right. So when they are talking about the trauma that's happened to them in a public place, they find that they start clenching their teeth and getting a bit of sort of shaking in the jaw. So teeth clenching and jaw shaking. Can you shed any light on that?
Yes, absolutely. Look, when we all understand, and it is a re-education. I mean, I know what I do is alien to a lot of people unless they hear about it, but when we recognize that we're holding that tension in the body's muscle memory, right? It's blocking our flow, literally. When people come to release and their body does the talking, that subtle shaking experience your individual there is sharing, is the body saying, let go. But you cannot talk it out the body, and you cannot talk about the problem if you don't know what the problem is. We may have a trauma that feels like it's taken us over the edge, but what we have to recognize, actually, it's all been building up since the day we were born. The scraps in the playground, right? The sibling rivalry, the arguments we might have had, the problems at work, the nervousness with exams and studying, all of it accumulates. And then we have the big stuff. Yeah, everything builds and it's sitting in that stress bucket. And then, boom. Now, I've worked with enough people that have said to me, the one thing about talking is it kind of brings the trauma back, but it's not doing anything with it. And I end up back in that state of feeling the feelings and letting go of the emotions.
Yes. Yes.
So then if that is what you do, then you're going to use your breathing techniques at least in that moment to calm down, but it's not healing.
That's
Healing
surviving. That's
comes from the
surviving the
inside
trauma,
out.
but we haven't, that's not healing it. So
No.
what would somebody have to do? Let's say they've have their trauma has reached that bucket, has reached the top. They're finding themselves in social situations. They're shaking. They've got anxiety. Maybe they've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. How do we then move them from surviving trauma to healing from the trauma?
To live again and let go of the past and build resilience. You know, really, resilience is an interesting word. Dads are often guilty of this. Teaching their sons resilience. It's like, man up, my boy, don't cry, it didn't hurt. We've seen it, we've heard it. We may have done it to our own children. But that resilience, toughen up, is stuffing all those feelings, emotions in the bucket.
Yes.
So they have to be released, or they sit there. And they sit there until the worst scenarios happen with health. And if people recognize that their breathing is impacted, they might not associate that with trauma. I tell you, every physical, mental, emotional pain that one goes through, there's no joining of the dots. You've got a back problem, low back, hip, go and see the back doctor. Got gut problems, go and see the gut doctor. Take medication. Headaches, can't sleep. It's all associated with the build-up of trauma in the body. And so learning to let go of the tension, like the animals do. You take a lion chasing the zebra will run and run and run till he's free of the predator. He does one thing before he eats grass, and he can have that experience 10 times a day. He has a tremor. His body tremors, lets go of the adrenaline, cortisol, the tension's gone, feels great, get on with it. But you know, we might recognize this in our own behavior. If a child came to you and it was crying, frightened, upset, and shaking like a leaf, your response to dealing with that child would probably be the same as everybody that I ask. From the men, the women, I would give them a hug.
Oh yes, the power of touch. If you're a person that likes a touch, I have to say I like a good cut. When I'm upset, it's a cuddle, it's a
Yeah,
fluffy blanket, it's a heated blanket, it's a hot water bottle.
yeah. But hugging that child is suppressing the body's natural release ability. And so
Oh, so it's not a
often
good thing. So it's not a good thing to have a hug.
it's hold their hand and say, all right, you're quite safe. You're with me now, but
Okay.
your body's tremoring because it's letting go of that for you.
So the tremors are a letting go of
Yeah,
trauma.
yeah. But in the program that we educate people with, they learn to activate that. And our mission is to get into schools, because if children heal so quickly.
Yes.
Every child learned to release tension with a simple physical practice, yet powerful and empowering, they would not take their childhood trauma into adult life. Regrettably, that's what we all did. That's what every adult is doing. And so therefore, it is what it is. What we offer is another choice. There is a way to move forward. There is a way to live again without the burden of the past, without having to cope. I talked to some people. I remember talking to one lady and I said, so let me get this right. You spend every morning going through rituals to get you through the rest of the day. And she said, yes, basically. I said, how does half an hour a week sound? And do you know what it does for all of those other things? It empowers a full life. Because when you hold tension, it impacts your body's ability to move freely because it gets tight. And you'll notice where the tension is in this big muscle we all have that holds it is if your hips are tight. If you try sitting cross-legged, and you notice a tightness in the hips, that is telling you you're right for releasing.
Well, thank
But
you, Caroline. You've really been fabulous with what you shared today. And thank you for sharing the breathing techniques, which people can take away with them today. And we will, in the description, of course, have your website. So please, everybody, please do seek out Caroline's website, find out a little bit more about what she does and how she helps people release their trauma. Thank you, Caroline, and I look forward to seeing you very soon at one of the next events down in Kent.
yes,
Take care now.
thank you so much. And I
Bye.
hope I can help you. Bye.
Bye.